Hey, AHLISA, happy Thursday. Happy baseball opening day. Let's go, Mets. Super excited about the baseball season. Wait, what? What do you mean? Seriously? Well, like for how long? Okay. Joke of the day. So why can't you hear a pterodactyl use the bathroom? Because the P is silent. Ah. All right, Elisa. So, what I've got for you today is the rest of the 1850s up until the election of Lincoln in 1860. So, more John Brown. So, this more information today will kind of help you hopefully get a sense of the climate of why he's doing what he's doing, especially in Harper's Ferry. Um, and as you look to kind of try to figure out how to explain Harper's Ferry, why people are supportive of Harper's Ferry, look to the Dred Scott decision. Um, so I've got some readings on. I got a reading on Dred Scott for you. Um, I've got also a short video on the Dred Scott decision for you as well. Um, don't worry about doing that stuff for homework because you've got that paper. I want you to continue to start working on that paper. So you've got the do now. You've got this video, these videos, I should say, to help you and get working on that paper. All right. Talk to you guys later. Stay safe. Stay smart. Have a good one. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to finish the 1850s and starting with a monumental Supreme Court case of Dred Scott v. Sanford. Sorry about that. So Dred Scott was a former slave who was suing for his freedom. The story is that Dred Scott was a slave in Missouri. His master was in the military. His master took him with him to Wisconsin when he was stationed. Well, first he was in Illinois when he was stationed in Illinois. From Illinois to Wisconsin, and then his master passes away. Dred Scott makes the argue that since his master brought him to free soil, therefore then he became free. So Missouri was a slave state. Illinois is a free state. Wisconsin is a free state. He then argued that he should then be free. Uh, his master dies. He is left in a will to someone else. That new master actually allows him to kind of pursue this case. And so it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court. And initially, the Supreme Court did not want to hear this case. But President Buchanan, whose thing is, well, if someone else can do all the heavy lifting for me, let them do it, decides to allow the Supreme Court, or actually encourages the Supreme Court to take this case. And the Supreme Court reluctantly takes this case. And Chief Justice Roger Taney issues a majority decision, first famously saying that blacks have no rights which the white man was bound to respect. And then lastly, that slavery is constitutional, that the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution grants property rights. If your constitutional rights are extended to you wherever you go as an American citizen, and so if you have the right to property, that right to property cannot be taken away. So if your property is your property in Missouri, your property remains your property in Illinois and Wisconsin, which means there's no way you can legally ban slavery. Slavery now is legal everywhere. It is a massive victory for the South in their argument trying to protect slavery. It is a huge blow to Northern abolitionists who are looking for a way to legally bring about an end to slavery through petitions, changing of laws, compromise, that type of stuff. But unfortunately, this Supreme Court case indicates that there is no legal way to bring about an end to slavery. The only way to do so would be to change the Constitution. And to change the Constitution, you need 3/4 of the states to agree. And when half of them have slaves, that is not going to happen. And so, as a result of this, the Compromise of 1820 is unconstitutional. The idea of popular sovereignty now is in question, right? The line 3630 does not apply, and that Congress has no power to regulate slavery anywhere in the United States. Slavery is legal, it is the law of the land. So politicians now have to deal with this. And so famously in Illinois, we have the Lincoln-Douglas debates, in which Abraham Lincoln is debating Stephen Douglas for a position as a U.S. Senator from Illinois. There are 7 debates. Um, Nobody thinks Lincoln is going to win these debates. Stephen Douglas, though, has a lot to lose. Stephen Douglas is a leading political figure around the country. Everyone assumes that Stephen Douglas is going to run for the presidency in 1860, and everyone assumes, since the Democrats are the dominant party in the country, that he will become president in 1860. So while Lincoln has got basically house money, he can do whatever he wants here. Stephen Douglas has to be careful. And so we have a series of debates around the state of Illinois. Lincoln opens these debates famously by saying, "A house divided upon itself cannot stand. This country can no longer continue to exist being either half slave or half free." And of course, in saying that, which side is Lincoln on? We don't know. He's an excellent politician. Um, but the most famous moment in these series of debates happens in Freeport, Illinois. And in Freeport, Illinois, Lincoln asks a humdinger of a question. Can the people of a territory in any lawful way exclude slavery from their limits prior to the formation of a state constitution? And he's asking this question of Stephen Douglas. And since this is in Freeport, Illinois, Douglas's response is the Freeport Doctrine. So it's a yes or no question. The problem is that Lincoln here has Admiral Akbar'd Stephen Douglas. It's a trap. And so if Douglas says, yes, there is a way for people to ban slavery, well, it looks like you're going against that Supreme Court decision, which is going to tick off people in the South. Won't hurt you in the Illinois election, but will hurt you in the presidential election of 1860. If Douglas says no, that there is no way you can do this, it looks like he goes against his own idea of popular sovereignty, and he looks like a hypocrite on that idea. So Douglas's response: slavery cannot exist a day or an hour anywhere unless it is supported by local police regulations. Basically, Douglas says a law is only as good as its police enforcement, and if you don't like the law, simply don't enforce it. And so that truly infuriates the South. Here they have this massive Supreme Court victory, and Stephen Douglas basically says if Northerners don't like it, Northerners don't have to follow it. That is not going to help him in the election of 1860. In addition, we have an incident that happens in Harper's Ferry. And in Harper's Ferry, Virginia, out in western Virginia, so far out west, it's now in West Virginia. Thank you. Our buddy John Brown, remember John Brown from, basically creating violence and bloodshed in Kansas. He emerges on the scene again with an audacious plan to attack the federal arsenal in West Virginia. And the plan is that he will attack the federal arsenal in West Virginia, and he will grab all the guns in that arsenal, go out into the countryside, use those guns to free slaves, and then arm those slaves, and those slaves then will go out and free other slaves, who will then free other slaves and free other slaves. Basically, what John Brown is advocating is a massive armed slave uprising throughout the country. It is a Southerner's worst nightmare. And this plan is financed by Northerners, right? So Northerners are funding this. Northerners are actually volunteering to assist John Brown in this endeavor. And so this is Harper's Ferry. And so Harper's Ferry is located on a peninsula. There's basically, it's easy to get in. It's going to be difficult to get out. And so someone like Frederick Douglass, who was recruited by John Brown to help him, Frederick Douglass says, this is a suicide mission. And there are some historians that believe that John Brown knew this and did this anyway, knew that he couldn't survive this attack, but wanted to become a martyr for the cause. So the raid goes horribly wrong. There are no guns in the arsenal, only spears. They try to do a massive slave uprising, but the slaves are resistant to rebel, so that doesn't happen. They wind up kidnapping someone. They actually hold a train hostage for a while and then let that train go, which just alerts the authorities. Eventually, by the following day, you have members of the Virginia militia arriving at Harper's Ferry. You have the United States Marines arriving at Harper's Ferry, and then you have locals that are fighting John Brown at Harper's Ferry. Brown is arrested. He is put on trial, and he is found guilty of treason, kidnapping, and murder, and he is executed. And his execution makes him a martyr. And so this further creates a disconnect between the North and the South. For Southerners, John Brown is as evil is, right? This is a guy who is advocating a massive slave uprising. He is advocating their worst fears. Northerners view him as a hero. There are songs written about him. Church bells peal throughout the North commemorating his death. You have writers writing about him. Um, and the thing is, and why many people support him now, is the idea of, okay, what other option do people have? And it's an interesting kind of debate. So someone like Frederick Douglass thought that John Brown was the noblest of people. You have people like Abraham Lincoln and William Lloyd Garrison who see John Brown as a terrorist, as the lowest of the low. And so the thought is, where do people divide on this? And for Southerners who see this, this is just one more, piece of evidence to indicate that the North is out to get them, that the North is against them. So before that, you had Stephen Douglas, Northern politician, basically saying you don't have to follow that Supreme Court decision. Now you have John Brown advocating a massive slave uprising, and Northerners supporting him, embracing him, and raising him up as a hero. This is too much for the South. And all of this is happening right before a presidential election. So you can imagine the mood of the country going into that election in 1860.